appreciate all of you being here. Mike and Julie Lesla, our daughter Rachel. Right now we have, and I keep this on a spreadsheet, but I think we have 38 doors. That's how we count it, is not necessarily the number of buildings, but the number of doors that we have under management. We certainly, or between the two of us, could probably talk on any given topic for a while, but didn't want to make it a big lecture here. Our goal with this is to make this a true roundtable. This is how my head organizes it, right? You have investments like flips or wholesales and those types of things. That's today money. That's like getting a commission on a sale, okay? It's an investment in that you want money now. It's counted as ordinary income just like your commissions are. That, in my mind, is today money. If you're talking like single family rentals, duplex, 4 units, or you go bigger than that, that's, in my mind, that's tomorrow money. Those are long-term investments, and I stress long-term. Those aren't necessarily get-rich-quick schemes, and if anyone promises you otherwise, they're probably lying. If you're going to get into a duplex or a 4-family or whatever it is, that's a longer horizon to make and add to your wealth. Understand what you're trying to do. If you're not making enough today money, buying an investment property is not going to solve that problem. It's going to make it worse, to be honest, especially up front. So know that going in. If you have plenty of today money and you're doing well, you need to find a place to invest it. So to get to Dana's point, how do I get other people's money involved in this? When you figure out, what am I trying to accomplish? Am I trying to flip? Getting other people's money there is a little different than getting other people's money to buy an investment property long term. There's different avenues. The best money you can get is a community bank. Probably your best interest rate. Smaller community banks. Don't go to Associated, don't go to BMO. In addition to that, you typically have to come up with a down payment. You have to come up with 20%, maybe 25%, something like that. So that's where maybe other people's money comes into play.
So it's how do I figure that out? I either use my own money, I borrow it from somebody else, I try to plug that hole. But if you buy something, you pay it down a little bit, you get it stabilized, you probably bring that value up, you might be able to refinance it, hold that initial 20 or 25% out, or maybe some or all of it, and you can use that to go buy another one.
I'm going to assume everyone here, like when we start investing, you want to start an LLC and buy everything under that LLC, right? You don't want to buy it under your own name.
I was going to say it's probably better that way. You're a little bit more protected, probably, right?
You don't have to. You probably get a better mortgage if it's not an LLC. Better mortgage means better terms on the mortgage. But if you're going to get into investing, you probably want an LLC just from a legal standpoint to separate that property or anything that would happen in that property from the rest of your assets. So, there's insurance, you could kind of hedge that. But once you start to get into this business, yes, putting in an LLC, that's a separate entity too. So that comes with its own strings, right? Everything's there. You need it needs its own bank account. You need the paperwork to back it up. Like it's its own business.
And then we went to this over time, but because we have multiple partnerships too, we have multiple LLCs that each own one or many properties, and then that all rolls up to a holding company at the top. And the reason I did that was tax reasons, because I didn't want tax returns all across the board and paying $3-4 grand for each one, right? So I can roll it into one and pay that, and everything just rolls into it. So it makes it simpler. One of the huge benefits of having rental property is the tax deductions that you can take. All right. So because we're all in real estate full time, we're considered a real estate professional. So from the tax law standpoint, any loss you have on real estate, you can deduct that off of your income, right? So if you're doing really well in real estate and make a bunch of commissions and you buy a couple properties, because of depreciation and other things like that, you might have a paper loss with these properties. Even though you're making money, you might have a paper loss that then offsets your commission income and lowers your tax rate. Being a real estate professional is a huge plus if you have rental property, because you can deduct all the depreciation that you take. And in the tax law that's in now with the one big beautiful bill, you can depreciate all of your fixtures in a property day one. Cabinets and the countertops and light fixtures, the 100% of it year one. So I can take this big deduction, but it allows me to have this big loss on this property that I can offset my active income and pay less in taxes.
Do you have any sets numbers in your own personal mind of when you have either one investment property or 20, this percentage personally from it, this percentage never go more than this back into that property, just the money that's coming in from it?
Generally, we'd like to make at least a couple $100 per door in order for it to make sense long term.
I was a CPA in my prior life, okay? So I'm gonna come clean right now. I no longer have my license, but I love spreadsheets, okay? And it just speaks to me. So I have all of our properties mapped out with revenue, all the different expenses. What are we making on this if everything goes well? What are we making on these? How much are we paying down? And what's my rate of return? For those reasons, Danielle, so that I can look at this and say, where are the dogs in my property that I want to get rid of, and maybe we take that money and reinvest in something else. No matter what you do, if you get into this and you start buying a bunch of properties, you're going to buy some that don't work out for whatever reason. So you track that and you kind of look at it and you say, all right, it's time to get rid of this one and we'll roll it into something else. Hopefully there's some equity there and you can do that. To Julie's point, we're looking at least 200 in cash flow a month and hopefully more over time, as rents grow and your payment stays the same. Hopefully your taxes don't grow too much. We don't take that money and use it. That stays in the business, but then it just grows over time. Dave, you had a question.
How do you know when it's time to let go of a good property? Because that's kind of what I'm going through right now. 3% rate. At the same time, you make $700-800, which is a great return.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
However, looking at all the equity that you've built up in those 5 years, you could easily, let's say, 1031 that into 10 or 15 doors and make a lot more. How do you know when to let go of like a good property?
That's tough. And it's more of, you're right on. It's like, what's my why? Like, what am I trying to accomplish? Is there a better return, a better property that I really want that's going to move the needle for me? And am I just tired of dealing with this other one? Or I really like this property. It's super stable. I have tenants that pay me every month. Is it better for me to refinance or get a line of credit on it? Because you can do that too on your equity. And take that and buy the other one, and now you have them all. And this one continues to operate, and your tenants have, help pay that down again, and now you have your new property. So there's no right or wrong to that, but it's just different ways of thinking about it. Is you can try to tap into that equity and then shift it over to something else. Because you're right, it's kind of dead equity right now. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of like, hey, what do I do with this? I should really reinvest it.
Yeah, Dale, it looks like you want to add to that too.
Ahead.
Yeah. No, I think always starting with why is huge. But sometimes we get foggy on our own why. And so I would highly recommend that when you're in that situation, you take a pause and you sit down with somebody that can give you some guidance from an outside perspective, right? There's always wisdom in that, because sometimes your why gets clouded with some emotion or with some history or whatever. And if this is purely investment, you do want to talk to somebody at some point that's going to be able to say, financially, this would be a good move. And then that can help you make that decision.
In terms of your flipping journey, did you guys start off doing most of the sweat equity yourself? And then how, if yes or no, / how do you then start on that journey?
In the beginning, especially, I would say even before we started like flipping homes, when we first had rentals, we did a lot of sweat equity was done by us, especially easy stuff like painting. We were there long nights and weekends. We'd hire people to do the harder things. As we got going and doing more and more, it just didn't make sense for us to keep doing that. It was more beneficial for us to hire somebody else to do it and use our time buying more houses.
To add on to that, I think it depends on what your volume looks like. Like if you're just flipping one at a time for some extra income, which I think is a real valid thing to do, you want to make as much money as you can. So then it's a trade-off of, all right, does it make sense for me to paint this, or do I hire a painter for $4,000 to paint all the walls, right? And that's a cost benefit of, all right, well, I'm not doing much else right now. I might as well just do it and save the money, right? But if you're slammed in real estate and you don't have time and you have kids at home and they're in sports and this and that, like, I don't have time for that. Well, you have to hire it if you're going to do it, right? So really, there's friends of ours that do a lot of work themselves, and they're going to make more money on their flips because they're paying themselves, essentially, to do some of the work. And they have those talents and abilities to do it well. The worst thing you can do is say, I'm going to do all the work, and then it looks like crap at the end.
Or it takes 2 years to do.
Or it takes too long.
Yeah.
So don't do that, because then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You want it to look good. You want to present a good product so you make some money. But there's nothing wrong with doing it yourself. It's just knowing that I'm going to spend the time doing that versus, going out and selling a house. So we got to a point where we were flipping 5, 6, 7 at a time. And there's no way we could be involved other than at a very high level.
some other people have brought this up in the circle. The amount of tenants that you probably have now with all of your doors, like what are your criteria? What do you look for? What are your red, yellow, green flags for tenant management? I think that's what deters, like, I don't know what anyone else, but not only myself, which I'm very blessed to have great tenants right now, but it just scares you because you're like, oh my gosh, you know.
It's super important to find the right tenants, and it's impossible
I can't
to know.
emphasize that
Yeah,
enough.
Right.
It might be more important than the deal itself,
Yeah.
is finding a good tenant.
The whole criteria is based on income and whatever, but it's important that, I mean, the biggest thing is you got to make sure that they can afford to pay you. So we have some rent criteria, and it's the same for everybody. It's, if they meet all these criteria, and we check out background checks and credit checks, and
We have like
and
a
meet-
minimum credit score.
Yeah.
And we state this right on the application so they know before they fill it out, here's how we make our decisions. They have to make typically at least 2.5 times the rent, because I found if you don't, you're going to have a hard time making the rent, especially if you have children. We have like no bankruptcies in the last 5 years, can't been evicted in the last X amount of time. We have a time frame on that. We look at their criminal background too to make sure we're not bringing in some bad elements. They have to hit all that. So resist the urge. Someone says, hey, I got 2 months rent for you up front. And you're like, my bank account's zero and I just put all this money into this thing and I got to get it going. I'm just going to take the cash. Every time we've done that, it did not work out. Every single time. Okay. So make sure they hit whatever the criteria is, make sure they hit it, and that, you get some good vibes or a good person, like, all right, this is the type of person I want to be involved with.
I sold an investor's portfolio rental products. I don't know if it was odd. He had all month-to-month leases. And when I say month-to-month, one of these tenants had been in there 18 years on a month-to-month lease. So what is the wisdom behind doing a month-to-month versus a long-term?
Do we do yearly rentals now?
I would say we're more month to month than not.
Typically, what we would do.
We have a mix of both.
Yeah, typically we'll start out with a 1-year lease, and then it automatically goes to month after that. And it's just more flexible. I mean, as long as they've been there at least a year, and let's say they want to go find a house, we're okay with them giving notice and moving. I don't want somebody moving in and then 6 months later they're out of there, because then we got to come back in and paint and get it ready. And
so the month to month really gives you flexibility, I guess, to answer your question more directly.
on both sides,
On
for the
both
tenant
sides.
and yeah.